Monick is the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses, and she's an educator and advocate for female real estate investors with a mission to help 1 million women achieve financial freedom through real estate. Monick is herself a real estate investor and syndicator and owns, together with her investors, over 1,000 residential, doors, and industrial assets across 15 states. She is a graduate of McGill University and Columbia Law School with the #1 best-selling book called The Real Estate Investor Goddess Handbook and Invest Like a Goddess, Advice from the Most Successful Woman in Real Estate, a TEDx speaker, podcast host, real estate strategy mentor, yogi, world traveler, recovered attorney, wife, and mother of 3 amazing kids. So thank you so much for joining me today, Monick, and I'm very happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, Anne. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I met you through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, and we just recently, I mean, not recently, it's already been a year, but feels like it was
I know,
yesterday.
crazy.
So we met through that program, and since then, I've been on your email list, and I'm really excited to ask you questions about real estate and learn a little bit more about your business. So my first question would be how did you get started? Because I know that you went to law school at Columbia University, and like, how did you make that pivot into starting your own business, and what got you interested in helping women achieve this financial road to freedom?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question and not something I ever foresaw. Like you said, I went to Columbia Law School. Growing up, I'm a first generation American. My parents are super um, supportive. They always said, Monique, you can be anything you want, but in parentheses, as long as you're a doctor, lawyer, professor, engineer. Because for them, that was success. And I was a good student, a dutiful daughter. I wasn't as into the maths and sciences. So I was like, I guess I'll be a lawyer. That was how that decision went down. And so I was in law school, miserable law student, but I thought, okay, well, it'll be better when I'm a lawyer. And then I was an associate in a big law firm, really unhappy and going, well, I guess we're not supposed to be happy as associates, but maybe as a partner. Um, but I was looking down the line and seeing what those partners were doing, and it looked like, this is kind of like I'm in a pie eating contest, but the prize is more pie, and I don't even like this pie. It's like poo poo pie. Like, what am I doing here? And then I and then at one point, remember, it was a Tuesday morning, and I was having excruciating abdominal pain. I went to the hospital, and the doctor told me that my appendix had ruptured, and I'd be in
Wow.
the hospital for several days. I ended up being in the hospital for 9 days, and then he said I'd have at least 30 days afterwards to recover. And when he told me that, my first thought was, oh, thank God I don't have to go to work for at least 30 days. And
It's a
then
relief.
yeah, I mean, he might as well have told me I'd won the lottery. Like, I felt that much joy and excitement at having, like, being able to, like, have a vacation from what felt like my health. And then my next thought was, oh God, that's not good, right? It's like I didn't quite realize how unhappy and miserable I was until that moment.
Right.
Um, but I had, you know, done everything right. I had taken the path that you're supposed to take. It's like the good college, the Ivy League law school, the partnership track, big firm, six-figure income, right? Like, I should have been deliriously happy, but I was really miserable. Uh,
It's
so
like a
I
gilded cage
knew,
almost. Everyone thinks you're
yeah,
happy.
and
Oh,
I was supposed to be happy. I was supposed to be like I had done all the things to be
right.
happy, right? That I was told would make me happy and successful. But I was, really, really not. And so as when I was at home recovering from um, my appendicitis, a friend of mine gave me this book called The Artist's Way, which is like 12-step artistic recovery. I didn't think I was artistic at all, or I had any, but I had this time. So I just started to do it, and it got me thinking differently and creatively. And I just went on this path, very roundabout, not straight, but it opened me up to maybe having a different way of being. And so I ended up going to Argentina to like work and study, and then came back and I went to a different firm and I started to just study all these different things, including things around the divine feminine and creativity and success, and just trying to learn and to figure out a different way of being where I actually could be happy. Um, and all of that was been percolating on the side. And then with regards to real estate, the only thing I'd ever been told was at some point you should you should buy your own house. Not to have an investment property, just that's what you do. You go, you get a job, you work in, at some point you get a car, you get a house, you work till you're 65, you get a gold watch, you golf for a few years, you die. Like that was that's the path. And so I was, working at the law firm, a different law firm, one that was not as miserable as that first law firm, but it was no picnic. But
More pie.
hmm?
More pie.
Yeah, it was more pie. It's a different, slightly better pie, but still, it was a lot of pie.
Yeah.
And so I went to buy that house that you and I would both live in Los Angeles, super expensive market. This is back in 2005, and house even back then, a starter home in a semi decent neighborhood, not a mansion in Bel Air, Beverly Hills, but like just a neighborhood where you're unlikely to have a drive-by shooting. We're looking at 500, 600, upwards of 600, $700,000, right? And even though I was making over 100,000, that wasn't that much to get a house. And what I ended up doing, and I had a friend who was also in a similar situation. We decided to buy together, and we ended up getting a multi-unit, each taking a bedroom and a bigger unit, renting out our upstairs. There was this back house that had been converted. We rented out our back house. We even had a basement that we rented out, and you know, I just did this so I could buy that house I was supposed to buy, and then I was like, oh, these people are paying my mortgage, and
Smart.
their tax benefits. Like this is great. So I became a real estate investor and a landlord purely by accident, just so I could buy a house. But I happened to buy a house that was bringing money, putting money into my pocket instead of taking it out. Later, I would realize that's ultimately what you want to do to build wealth, to have financial freedom. So, you have when you have passive income coming in and you're not having to trade your time for money anymore. That's really wealth. That's freedom. When you have enough, I said my goal is to help 1 million women create financial freedom. I define that as when you have your passive income that equals or exceeds your expenses. Then you are working because you want to, not because you have to. You could stop working, your passive income would take care of everything. That was that's now the goal, but I never thought of that as the goal. I was never taught that that should be a goal. I've just thought, you get a job. So I had this job, and I have this house that's bringing in some money, but it's LA. LA does not cash flow, and it basically was, it's paying for itself, but there's no extra. I realized that that was a thing where properties actually give you extra money. But in other markets, it does. When you live in LA through an expensive market like that, you're like, really? You can buy property actually that gives you money every month? But yes, it does. But it was paying for itself, which was, I was it was a lot. I wasn't outlaying versus what I was renting, and I had these tax benefits. And then when I met my husband, he had a duplex, and then we got married. Um, and I went into a different firm, and I was 5 months pregnant. And I went to tell my boss that I was expecting, and a week later he called me into his office, and I thought I was going to have a bonus. He was going to give me a bonus because I've been working so hard, but instead I got
Mhm.
fired.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so here I am pregnant. Um, my belly's popped out, and it just, and I thought, oh yeah, nobody's gonna hire me like this. Let me
That's
just wait
totally
until.
unexpected. How frightening to
It
be
was
in the
very
market.
unexpected.
Hmm.
Um, I would never have asked for it, but in the end, it was a blessing in disguise. It was a gift. I'm really grateful that that
What did you
happened.
do from that moment? Like, what do you even start? What's your next step? I mean, it's very
Yeah, so
exciting.
what I was going to do, the plan had been to just wait until after I gave birth, take a short maternity period, then I would find another job as a lawyer. I still did hate it, I really didn't like being a lawyer, but at that point it was my identity. I'd been doing it for almost 10 years. Um, and I just like, I'm a lawyer, and I didn't realize that you could actually have jobs where you weren't miserable. So
We're
I was
trained
like,
to be miserable.
yeah, I was like, just
I never
like,
thought
oh yeah, I'm not meant to be like happy at work. Like, what's that?
that.
That's not a thing. So I was like, not so miserable that you'd prefer to be in a hospital. Then, wasn't like that bad. So I
Little less
figured that was
miserable
okay.
than before.
Yeah, I was like less miserable. I wasn't like miserable. I was just, moderately unhappy. So I thought that was a vast improvement. And so I was going to look for another job where I would, also only be moderately unhappy and after I gave birth. But my daughter was born in late August of 2008, and within a month of her birth, the markets were in free fall. Um, it was a terrible time to look for a new job. My husband, he had a graphic design business. His business went down 95%. Um, it was really dire.
And at this
So
time,
what
did he have the duplex and you still had the house?
we did. So that's what saved us. We ended up selling one of the duplexes, and then we had some cash, and we started to buy houses and flip them when the houses were really on sale. It was actually a great time to be in the market. Everyone was terrified of buying real estate at that point because, just was like, oh my God, the price have crashed. And so everyone was really scared to buy houses, but that was actually a really great time to be buying. Um, and so we were buying and flipping. Hindsight being 2020, I wish I'd kept those houses instead of flipping them, but when you know better, you do better. At that point, I didn't know better. What I thought of as real estate investing was what I saw on HGTV. And what I saw on HGTV was flip or flop and, like flip shows. So that's what I thought that you did.
I saw that too,
Even though,
and at one point I wanted to be a real estate investor who flips houses too, but I didn't get as far as you
yeah,
did to actually do it.
yeah, but that's what you and you go and you're like, oh, I could do what they're doing, right? Like that's not. I've done some remodeling of my house. Like I can do
Right.
that. And it was, thankfully, it was a market that was very, very, very forgiving because it was hard. We were buying so inexpensively, um, and it's just like the just because of the conditions, it was very easy to make money. Um, I made so many mistakes that if I had to do it again, I would do very differently. But thankfully, we were able to make mistakes in an environment that was very forgiving of mistakes. Now it's not that same environment, so it's really important to have education. So after a while, then flipping the houses were not quite as on sale. It's around 2015. And flipping is a job. So I was saying like, financial freedom comes from passive income, right? So like you get a property, you put in a tenant, they they pay rent after expenses, you have money coming in every month after month after month, whether you're working another job, whether you're sleeping, you're on vacation, like that's passive income. Flipping is not passive income.
It's
It's
very
active, right?
active.
You buy a house, you have to fix it, you sell it, and then you have to rinse and repeat. You have to keep doing it. And I wanted passive income. So I started to look in LA for a fourplex, which was kind of the biggest thing I could imagine investing in at the time. And a fourplex this is around 2015. We're looking at $2 million minimum and with zero cash flow, right? There, you don't, it was very, very hard to make money with that, that kind of real estate here. Super tenant friendly. And I was frustrated. And at that moment, I ended up meeting somebody who would, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And it was the person who had the exact right message at the right time. I was in a mastermind and I was telling a friend of mine who was in the mastermind my frustrations around, the flipping, just being a lot more competitive and with the margins being smaller, as well as, you know, wanting the fourplex but not being able to find anything. And he said, "Oh, I have a friend. His name is Robert Helms. He's the host of the Real Estate Guys Radio podcast. It's the number one real estate podcast in the country or the world. He's done hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate. He's coming to LA tomorrow night. Would you like to come to dinner?" I was like, "Sure, yeah, sounds like a really good
Open
person to
door.
know." Yeah, I was like, absolutely. So next night, I was talking with Robert, and he was asking me what was going on, and I was telling him about, the challenges with the flipping and finding the fourplex, and he said two things that completely changed the game for me. So the first thing he said was, "Oh, yeah, you're looking for this fourplex." He says, "LA's a really tough market. I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense." And I went, oh, because until he said that, I just assumed that I had to invest where I lived, where I could, drive to my property, touch it, self-manage it. It didn't occur to me that I could invest anywhere else. And LA is such an expensive market. It's so tenant friendly. Great if you're a tenant, not very great if you're a landlord. And it was hard to cash flow. So when he said that, I was like, he literally opened up the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge paradigm shift. The other thing that he said was, you can buy that fourplex by yourself, but you're limited to your own capital and credit. Alternatively, you can bring a group of investors together and you can buy a 100 or 200 unit apartment building. And he started telling me about the benefits of that. I think my head probably exploded. I was like,
It's a
what?
big
Like
deal.
100 or 200 unit? It's like, I thought you had to be a billionaire to do that. I just would never, ever, until he said that, ever occur to me to even imagine that I could own anything like that. It's like, whoa. But I
Me
had
too.
this
You're kind
full,
of blowing my mind right now. Just I have not thought like that either until
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I was like, what? And so three things occurred to me at that moment. Like one was that um first that like this was a possibility, right? Which I'd never even known. And that's like there's a value of um just that's the value of education and being around people who know like I, you don't even know what you don't know. I
Right.
was like that wasn't even in my realm of like I didn't even
Possibilities.
think to like put that on my vision board. I was like, I was never, I think I've never would have even considered that because it was
To think
so,
that big.
yeah. The other thing was like, I knew I wanted to be around people who thought that big. Until that moment, everyone I was around thought a fourplex was a really big deal. They thought the flipping was a big, the fourplex was huge. And I was like, I want to be around people who think 100 or 200 units is normal. That's where I want to play. I want to be, or because when you're around people like that, that's what you like. You become like the people you hang around with. I was like, I
Right.
want to hang around with people who think that's normal, and or who are playing life at that big a game, right? That big a level. And the other thing was, and I said, oh, and I want to learn how to do this. And so I told Robert at the time, I said, I am going to be your groupie. I'm going to learn. He laughed. He thought I was kidding. I was like, totally just for like 3 years, I followed him literally around the world learning because I knew I wanted to do this. And I knew that it makes sense to just not try to reinvent the wheel, but learn from people who are doing what you want to do.
Yeah, they said the
A
best thing is
collapsed
to
time
learn from
frame.
other people's mistakes than to do it yourself.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's like a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a genius learns from other people's mistakes. I was like, I want to be learning from the
Genius.
like people who are doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I went home that night. I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, there's this thing. It's called syndication. You bring investors together. It's like, we're gonna do this. So that night we bought tickets. This was, I remember, it was October 15th of 2015. And that night we bought tickets to a syndication seminar for January to learn how to do
So you had his
that.
buy-in when you came home. Was he easy to convince, or did you have
He was easy to convince because it act you know, it's weird because you would think that it's a lot harder to buy a 100 unit apartment building than a 4 unit apartment building,
to? Hmm.
or even a single family home. But the way commercial lending works versus residential, and residential is considered 1 to 4 units. Commercial is basically 5 or more units or pretty much anything else. Um, so with residential lending, which is what most people think of when they're buying, right?
Right.
They think, okay, it's based off of you as a borrower, in you, your own capital, your own credit. They're looking at your debt to income ratio. They're looking at your ability to pay for this loan.
Right.
And we were, um, especially at this point, we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners. We didn't have a W-2. And as an entrepreneur, one of the nice things about entrepreneurship is that you can deduct a lot of expenses and your income does not look high, right? Like no matter how
It
much money you're
kind
making,
of works against you, right? When you're
it
purchasing.
works against you if you're trying to get a residential loan, right?
Right. I
So because
remember
they're
a friend of mine's also an entrepreneur, wanted to buy a house and said that the challenge was not having the full-time income and having all the write-offs makes it look like her
exactly. So it's
profits.
nice that you don't have to pay as much taxes, but what's not nice is that for tax purposes, you don't look like you have much income. And which is great when you're paying taxes, it's not so great when you're trying to get a loan that's based off of your income.
Of course.
So we were in a tricky situation. It was hard for us to find a house. And mostly we were buying, when we were doing these flips, we were buying all cash. And so we had the money to pay for something all cash, but we
Hmm.
couldn't get a loan on a it's like I could,
Irony.
it's like I have the money in the bank to buy this in cash. and you won't give me a loan for like,
Right.
like, where I put 20% down. It was crazy. But with the commercial loan, the loan is based more off of the income of the property itself, not so much on your particular income. And you can partner with other people so that there is a certain amount of, as an investment group, you need to have a certain amount of liquidity, a certain amount of, of assets that, equal in the loan, but you can partner with other people. So it's, it's, it was easier for me to get a $10 million commercial loan than to get a loan on a property that I literally could buy in cash. So because of, just the way my income was. So that was also very convincing.
You went from working into a full-time position into an independent job, flipping houses, very entrepreneurial. I would say risky, but really um, did such a great job kind of um, capitalizing on an opportunity and then going from that into the commercial real estate. How did you break into that third transition? Was it through a partnership or your mentor kind of coached you through that?
So both. So it was, I did have mentorship. I did pay for education, and mentoring. So I had guidance, especially since I was investing with other people's money, right? It's one thing to lose your own money. It's another thing to lose other people's money. And so you want to, like, the bar is a lot higher. But also, I had a different point. I had experienced partners. So the first, that first year we invested, we brought together investors for a 109 unit mobile home park, and then a 55 unit townhome community and a 77 unit apartment building. The townhomes and the apartments were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Um, the the mobile home park is in North Carolina, and then we passively invested in properties in Dallas and Atlanta, uh, with other people, learning by observing and being limited partners in those deals. But then we were partnering with other people who had the experience, people who had the experience with the mobile home park. We had a bunch of other parks. We came in with him on that one. The the um, the Albuquerque properties, we went in with another. We had a partner who had done. I think that was his fourth apartment building at that point. And so we were piggybacking off other people's experience and their network. So we definitely did not do it alone. We had to partner with the right people. And that was how we made the transition. Um, yeah.
And then how did that turn into you encouraging and empowering other women to teach them what you've learned along the way? Because a lot of times people are gatekeeping their information, and sometimes they have this
Yeah.
scarcity perspective that there's no more great investment properties or whatever the case is. But you're very generous with teaching women, and what made you do that transition from not only being an investor, but an educator?
Yeah. Great question. So while I was when I started when I went on this journey to find what would make me happy. Way back when I was in that from when I was in that hospital bed, I started to study divine feminine and success principles and all sorts of things. When I got fired, I decided I wanted to become a coach. Um, and so I did a coaching certification. And eventually, while I was flipping, I became an abundance coach for women. And I just sort of kept getting pulled into that, and that's what I was doing. So I was, helping women around money, um, not focusing on real estate. That was something on the side. That was how I was bringing in my money, but I was just, helping women around money. And then I I started to go to these. I said I went to that, signed up for that conference in January. At that there, I signed up for a high-end real estate mastermind, and then I went and I joined this other program to learn about apartment investing. Probably invested $60,000 that year alone just on my education. It was a big investment. And I'm going to all of these different conferences, and I'm part of this high-end mastermind. That high-end mastermind was 19 men and me. And I would go to these conferences, and I remember I was at this one, and there were about 120 people there, and maybe 8 women out of the 120,
Definitely a
two of which I think were
minority.
working in the back.
Uh-huh.
There were no women.
Yeah.
And I remember after that, it's like it was 2 days, and one of the things they were talking about, you're syndicating, and you want to think about who do you want to work with? Who's your, build your brand, build your network. Who do you want to work with?
Right.
And I was on the elliptical, the hotel gym that next morning, and I'm just going through, and it came as this divine download. And it was like God said to me, "Here's your mission. Should you choose to accept it, right? Bring women into this room." And I just had this full body yes. It was like I got goosebumps because it was, marry the abundance work that you've been doing with women, if the divine feminine, all the personal development work, and the real estate. Just bring women together, help, bring them into this, as this way of transforming, really, really creating transformative experiences. It's like this is how you build wealth. 90% of millionaires become so through real estate. That for millennia, real estate has been the main way that wealth has been created and passed down from, for the ages. And for a long time, women were not allowed to participate in that game. Um, for a long time. Not, I mean, it's like until 1988, a woman couldn't get a business loan by herself.
Wow.
They had a relative to sign off. So 1988, right? It was like the 70s, you couldn't have a credit card by yourself. It was like you couldn't get
Even not long ago.
mortgages by yourself. Like it has not been that long,
Yeah.
um, for women. And the reason why when you're married, you're a Mrs. It's basically like Mr. apostrophe S, like belonging to the Mr. Women were the property. Not only were they like not able to buy the property, they were property. And so the like being able to like it just help, bring women in it came in, and not just that, but it's not only that I want to help women, but I know that when women have anything more, they give back. They give back to their families, they give back to their communities, they give back to the world. And they show this, all these micro lending studies that whenever they give to the men, like nothing changes. They give it to women, the community completely transforms. So I know that helping women in this way is my shortcut for helping everyone. Because once you empower a woman, she's going to bring along her kids, bring along
Multiply.
her men, bring along her sisters and her mamas and her cousins and like her besties and her like she'll the neighbors,
And
everyone
the whole
benefits.
community.
Yeah, the whole community. It's the shortcut to help everyone. You empower women.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah,
So,
that's why.
if let's say you're kind of on the fence and you this real estate investing as an opportunity to grow your wealth or build your wealth is something that's new. I mean, you've never even considered it. You haven't had those conversations, but maybe you're interested in buying your first home. Like, what would you recommend as like a baby step for someone who wants to own their property and kind of wants to dabble and possibly exploring it. I know for me, I am risk averse, and the thought of owning property out of state elsewhere um, is, a big leap. But I do
Yeah.
think, like, it's baby steps. So, like, what would be your recommendation on, like, where to even get started, for someone who doesn't own property?
Yeah. Great. Well, I think education is a great way to start. Be- because it it is risky to do real estate, right? It is the most expensive thing you're probably ever going to invest in. Mistakes are costly. And so you want to be able to avoid mistakes and learn from other people's mistakes so you don't have to make your own. Collapse time frames and also figure out what makes sense for you. Real estate investing is not one size fits all.
Right.
There are so many different ways of doing it, ways and I have something available for free on my website. If you go to reigoddesses.com, it's called Investing in Real Estate from $1 to $1 million, investing strategies for every budget and every goddess. And the I created that because some people it basically answers the three biggest objections that women have. So one is I don't think I'm not sure I have the money. So they're always worried that they may not have enough. Well, however much they have, there's always this fear they don't have enough.
Right.
And I share four different strategies that are low low barrier, right? So
Mhm.
one is literally it's free. Somebody told me you can't say free. I was gonna say from 0 to 1. They're like, you can't say zero. It has to be at least $1. I was like, okay, fine, I'll say $1, but it really is free. So from free to like a few $100s, you can dip your toe in, right? There are ways of doing it that don't have a lot, that don't
Mhm.
require a lot of money. Another objection is it's gonna take me a lot of time,
Right.
and I don't have that much time. I'm a busy woman, and what do I do? And so I share four strategies that are very low time. And then the last one, a bit more, but the last big one is that a lot of women don't really want to be landlords. They don't want to have calls in the middle of the night about toilets. They don't want to have to evict anybody. They don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, termites.
Right.
And so I share four strategies for investing where you don't have to deal with tenants. You don't have, there are ones that where you never ever have to have that type of conversation, never have to evict anybody, never have to deal with that. And there are a lot of different ways of doing this. So education is the key because like I had no idea that I could own apartment buildings. Now I own industrial like factories and warehouses and things like that. It's like you told me that like I don't know 10 years ago. I probably would have thought you were like on drugs. I wouldn't. I just I don't know. Like what are you talking
Yeah.
about? I just would have like it would have sounded so insane.
Mhm.
And but it's actually something I do, and it doesn't actually take that much time because other people are managing it. Other people are doing the work. A lot of these properties, I've never even stepped inside of them. I don't know. I've never been in them. I don't have to. And so
So you've bought
that's
properties sight unseen.
yeah, and other people are managing it.
Hmm. That's incredible.
So yeah, it's cool.
So now that you
So
invest out of state, do you have a lot of properties in Los Angeles? I know it's a pretty.
nope, no, I don't. Yeah, because it doesn't make sense for we have some apartments in San Bernardino, California, but
Mhm.
mostly and there's a couple industrial properties in California, but mostly we're in the Midwest and the Southeast. um,
And
where
you
it's
have
just,
a virtual event on December 5th
I
and 6th
do.
called Invest Like a
Yes.
Woman, and it's a virtual gathering. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your event?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. That's the other thing. With the education, go get educated. And this is a really amazing way to do that. It is going to be 3 days, which you can join us from the comfort of your home or office. Um, we're bringing together an incredible group of women who are all doing real estate in different ways. You're going to learn a lot of these different strategies, things that are working right now. All these women have at least seven-figure businesses or bigger. Um, they're very successful and are doing it in a different way. You're going to learn about what's working now, how to do it, and then how to do it as a woman, because we women are not just smaller, less hairy men. We're different on a chromosomal level. Our brains are wired differently, and those differences actually affect how we relate to money and investing, how we learn, how we deal with stress. And there are ways in which we're taught in this masculine, patriarchal culture that does not work for us. Um, and but there are there are ways of doing this that will invite in ease, grace, flow that work with us as women. So we're going to be talking about that. And to join us at this event, you can go to REI. Well, um, you'll have a link that you'll put in I think in the notes. So you can go to this link. And if you use the code LA Socials, this is for you listening, you're part of Anne's audience, then you will get 50% off your ticket. So your general admission ticket or your and it's right now the ticket's only 97 and it would be 50% of that. Or the VIP ticket where you get the recordings and gifts sent to your house and we make it a donation to Habitat for Humanity. And that's 284. So it'll be again 50% off.
So that's normally $197, and early bird before
Yeah,
30th is 97, and then with the code LA Socials, it's half off of that, which is a great deal.
yes.
And so
Yep.
in this virtual conference, are you going to cover um, let's like how to research where you should be purchasing property and kind of like just the first steps
Hmm.
in someone interested in real estate as an investment vehicle?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the foundational principles of investing in real estate, which I have the acronym WEALTHY. So each letter stands for a part of, you know, what's important to learn. So the W has to do with womanly, how you do it from the feminine. E has to do with education. So it, the more, as Warren Buffett says, the more you earn, the more you learn. And it really is what you don't know can hurt you. So what do you need to learn and how? A has to do with assets, the different types of assets that you can buy, different strategies, and asset protection, because it's not just what you make, it's what you keep that matters. L has to do with location, and that's like like how do you find where the numbers make sense, right? Like where do you want to live? That's where the numbers make sense. How do you find that? We share the 7 things that you want to look for to find a money making market. T has to do with team. Real estate investing is a team sport. So we'll talk about who do you need on your team and how do you find them. H is how you pay. So we're going to share different strategies for funding or financing. We'll be sharing um, 12 different strategies for buying property, and why the last letter is U, because real estate investing is not one size fits all. So we're going to show you how you make a plan that makes sense for where you are, where you want to go, how you want to play in this game, what resources you have, so you can make the most of those. So that's what we're going to be talking about, showing you how to get wealthy by using that those foundational principles.
And once they learn, they're part of a group, right? They continue being part of this community that has resources. Like, are they joining a Facebook group, or how do they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so there'll be a Facebook group, and yeah, once you're in, you're part of our goddess community, and there'll be an invitation to go deeper if you want, but we have a Facebook group and a wonderful community that you will be part of, the sisterhood. I make a promise at the beginning of every event. So one is that you will leave knowing more real estate investing than 90% of other people out there. And I check at the end, it's like, did I keep my promise? I was like, yes. And the other one is I promise that at the end you will feel like you have you know, hundreds of new sisters that and it really by the end you feel like you are part of the sisterhood. It's not where we are co-elevating. It's like this incredible supportive community of women that just cheer for each other, support one another. So that's what you're tapping into at the event.
And if they want to join, let's say for scheduling reasons or for whatever reason, they missed this conference, they can find out about more events going to your website, realestateinvestorgoddesses.com.
Yeah, they can. Definitely get the Investing in Real Estate from $1 to $1 million download, which is free. It'll get you on our list, and you'll be able to find out about all of our future programs and offers.
Incredible. So, Monick Halm, she's been on TEDx, CBS News, Huffington Post, ABC, the list goes on and on. So, I'm really grateful for your time today and really looking forward to a great conference. So, thank you so much. If
Thanks
there's
for having me. This has been fun.
one last thing, what would be your takeaway advice for someone listening to this? Like, what would be the one thing that you would want them to leave with?
One thing is make a decision now to take a step towards creating passive income, towards that freedom, that financial freedom. Any step. So whether you go right now and get that free download, you go and click on the link and you get a ticket. It's like, that's like your destiny is created in the moments of your decision. So just take an action step right now in that direction.
That's good. The best time to act is now. Thank you so much, Monique.
Thank you, Anne. This was fun.